A few summers ago, I remember having this conversation with a priest, and he kept coming back to this point. He kept circling around it, and the point was this, that firsthand experience trumps everything else. I know something to be true more than ever when I experience it firsthand, more than when I read a fact out of a book or when I even hear it from someone secondhand. I know something to be true more than ever when I experience it firsthand for myself. Such is the case of, for example, I know the fact that oceans have a strong undercurrent, but I don't know that fact the same way that someone who has been sucked under by one of those currents knows that fact. And in fact, that person will operate differently around oceans than I will, precisely because he has the first-hand experience of knowing something about oceans that I don't. And so it seems to me that it's really true, that first-hand experience trumps all else. And in the gospel today, we get to witness the disciples having this first-hand experience. And in the context of it, they're in this particular mindset that is so familiar to me, and I know I can't be the only one, that they're having a day up on the mountain with Jesus, and at the first sight of danger kind of approaching, they immediately go into this calculating mode. This mode of assessing the situation, saying like, okay, it's getting dark, Jesus is still talking, there's all these people here, we don't have bread. Okay, Jesus, you have to send them away so they can go and buy some bread themselves. And Jesus doesn't go for that option. So they say, okay, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to buy the bread ourselves? It would cost 200 days' wages. And in their calculations, they seem to be totally and utterly stuck. Jesus doesn't go for any of the options that they propose. And they come to this point where they're out of their league. They seem cornered, trapped, out of options. And I know I can't be the only one who has that experience almost on a daily basis. Whether it's a job search that just never seems to end, it's this sin that I thought I should have taken care of by now, it's that retreat that I would hope would really change my daughter and bring her back to the faith. It's getting to the end of a workday and thinking that I should have had all these things done by now, but I don't. And I feel stuck, out of options. And it's precisely in this context that the disciples ask the question, probably just in their minds, of why did Jesus do this? Why does Jesus allow this experience of being stuck? And it's because Jesus wants to give us first-hand experiences of his providence. And those only come in the context of feeling out of options. That is, Jesus wants us to have tangible, tactile experiences of desperate need met with abundant providence. And it's precisely in this situation that he gives us first-hand experiences of that providence. This is the entire point of Christmas, the season that we're living in. This is the entire point of the Epiphany. It's that God comes to be incarnated, not to save you on some spiritual level, but to save you from the problems that you find in your life. Because if you don't find Jesus in the moments of your job search and your sin and your lost daughter and your work, that's where your life happens. And if Jesus isn't there, then Jesus is not in your life. The Israelite people on that mountain encounter Jesus in this way precisely because they're living in the midst of a history with memories. And Jesus performs this tactile first-hand experience for them in the context of all those memories. He orders them to sit down on green grass. And it must have been in their minds, Psalm 23, that the Lord is my shepherd and there is nothing I shall want. In green pastures he has me lie down. By restful waters he leads me. And even more so, he has them sit down in groups of hundreds and by 50s. It's so reminiscent of Moses standing before the Red Sea, of Moses about to call down bread from heaven, of Joshua about to lead people into the promised land. And so as we're coming up with Jesus passing through the Jordan River to be baptized in there, he operates in this whole context of memories that bring up these tactile experiences of God providing for his people. But the great message of the gospel is Jesus is not content simply saying that. He wants to show it to them. And so in the same way, for us, in the Eucharist, we have this great fulfillment of it's not just Moses providing manna in the desert, and it's not even Jesus multiplying loaves for his disciples, but the great gift of God, the great providence of God is him himself. It's he gives him to us, gives himself to us. And so as we come to the Eucharist today, and we have the tactile experience of receiving him, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think back over your life and know that you live in this entire historical context. You are a treasure chest of experiences in which God has been providential to you. And just think of one, and think of the context in which you experienced that. And my guess is it was an experience of being stuck, of being trapped. And right in that moment, God comes and he gives you an experience of his providence, precisely so that the next time it happens, you can remember back and say that the Lord has been faithful to me in the past, and he will do so again. This priest that I mentioned at the beginning, who was talking to me about this principle, and he just lived it so well. He struggled with addiction for most of his life. And I think more than anyone in the human experience, someone who has struggled with that knows what it feels like to be stuck and out of options. And so precisely in the midst of this priest having the experience of God saving him, he just operates on a whole different level of in the promised land, receiving providential care. Because firsthand experiences trump everything else. And God wants you to have firsthand knowledge of his providence.